So I'm being starved here. You can be starving and be fat. There's this misunderstanding. There's a bunch of misunderstandings about health and things that I'd like to help educate people on. Like, you can be, like, obesity is actually a condition of malnutrition. It's caused by eating the wrong food. That's what obese. It's not caused by eating too much food. It's caused by eating fake food. Because when you eat real food, it doesn't make you fat. There are no other animals that I'm aware of that eat the food they're designed by evolution to eat that become obese. Like, can you think of another predator or, like in the wild, another carnivore? Because that's what humans are. We're basically carnivores. Or we come from carnivores. Now I guess we're omnivores. But, um, like I'm trying to think, like, do you see like obese other primates that are obese eating what they're designed by nature to eat or designed by God or whatever? No, you don't. It's only humans that get fat. And but it's because we're eating the wrong food, or we're not the wrong food. We're eating something other than food that's causing us to screw up our insulin and our metabolism. Because basically obesity is caused by, this is really simplistic, but it's caused by the cells are storing fat instead of burning it as fuel. That's what it's caused by. So that's why people thought it was the calorie model made sense when people didn't understand the biochemistry better. I'd be interested to know what they're teaching in medical schools about this now. But the whole field of nutrition is broken or corrupted by big food. So big food, the processed food industry, we shouldn't call it big food. It's not food they're selling. They're selling food products, food-like products, simulated food products. The processed food and processed fake food industry has corrupted science. It's corrupted the institutions, academia, and medicine, and the culture. Big money to be made selling processed food, and it's really just it's pretty simple. It's just really profitable to make processed food like products, and people just eat that shit up, and they just keep eating because it makes you hungry. The more processed food you eat, the hungrier you get, and the fatter you get, the hungrier you get. So I'm suffering right now. I'm starving because I ate a Subway sandwich this morning. If I'd eaten a ribeye, I'd probably be okay right now, especially if I had been eating ribeyes every day. But I don't have access to real food. That's what real human food is. Real human food is. So people, if you disagree with me on this, please convince me or educate me. Please educate me. Humans are carnivores. Like lions are carnivores. Wolves are carnivores. Grizzly bears are carnivores. What other carnivores are there in nature? Tyrannosaurus rex was a carnivore. Humans are sharks. Orcas. I'm trying to think of other carnivores or predators that hunt, non-human hunters, that hunt. We're pack hunters, kind of like wolves are pack hunters, but we're special. We make tools, and we communicate with language, and we can plan ahead. We have big brains and stuff. We're special. We have opposable thumbs. Humans are a very special creature on planet Earth. Very unique. Very special. And but we're still animals, And so no other animal, does like all these advanced chemical processes, industrial processes and then eats the product of that. No other animal does that. They just eat what's available in their environment. I mean, we really probably shouldn't even be cooking our food. We probably should just be eating raw meat. There are people that do that. They eat raw meat. The problem with that, of course, is who wants to get a parasite? And I'd like to learn more about the history of cooking using fire to cook food. When did that start? And I think we know that Neanderthals were also cooking their food, and that's a form of processing. So that's when processed food started. Before that, it was just eating raw meat. But we are hunters. Like our anatomy is that of a hunter. So we're designed by God, if you will, to the men get together in a group, a hunting party, to go out chasing down large animals using weapons like spears, and making spears. Women today love to make jewelry and stuff. It's because they have that spear making instinct in them still. Men like to make spears too. Men like to make stuff. We are tool making, and the first tool was, arguably the spear. That was like the first tool, right? We have like a tool making mind, genetically, and then the hunting programming to go hunt. That's why people love fishing. People love fishing. People get like a thrill from catching a big fish. People get a thrill from hunting. Joe Rogan does hunting, recreational hunting. It's something that's in our DNA. We're designed to do. We just get a thrill from chasing down an animal and killing it. And that's probably why I enjoy collecting. People enjoy collecting. It's survival instinct. I enjoy collecting information, movies and stuff. And then, so that's what humans are. We're carnivores. We're designed by nature. Now you could say we're designed to do agriculture. That's interesting. I mean, it could be that we have some agriculture. I don't think we have anything in our DNA that gives us the urge to go plant seeds and till the soil and all that nonsense. That's a learned behavior just because we have the mind to be capable of learning, and we have the extremities, the opposable thumb, and the ability to domesticate animals eventually, and the ability to change our environment and stuff. Like a lot of animals don't have that ability. We're the only one that has the mind and the things that make us human are like the thumb, the opposable thumb. Like the hand is very special. You don't see that in a lot of other animals. And then the mind and the language. That's super unique. In the animal kingdom, like no one else has that. That's what makes us human. And then it's uniquely suited for tool making to hunt big animals. So, there's this idea that caveman was like picking berries and shit. That we did that too, of course. We got honey. People still today forage for honey, forage for berries and stuff, but that's not what people were making spears for. It's for weapons, it's for fighting other humans, and for hunting. And the most prized food throughout all of human history, the most prized food was like a freshly killed animal, large, the ancestor to cows and other ruminants. And then eventually we domesticated our prey, and we got the modern day cow, and we domesticated all these animals, which is really interesting. When did that start happening? And and then we did agriculture, and domesticated these plants and stuff. And then we learned that people can survive on plants and less meat, because meat has always been hard and expensive. It's always been hard to get and expensive because you have to work to get your meat. You have to hunt. It's a lot of human labor, a lot of work. People risk their lives to go hunt. Look at the Native Americans. They risk their lives hunting the buffalo. And we're designed to do that. We're designed to go risk our lives. The men risk their lives to go hunt, and the women, stay at the camp, and take care of the children, and forage for resources from the environment and stuff. So that's what we're designed to do. We're by natural selection. And I would like to know if there was any kind of divine intervention or something, because it is very strange how we ended up with language and there's just some interesting things that I would like to know more about how that came about. I've read all of Richard Dawkins' books, and I still have a lot of questions. How do we learn what all the different plants do? Because plants were seen as medicine, really, not like a staple of the food source, unless there was no other food source available. Like you can see, like I think it was like Papua New Guinea or something, different cultures that were stranded on different islands, and they just survived on like when they ate all the chickens, they ate all the goats, and there was nothing left except for like bananas or something, or potatoes or something. And then they continue living on those, but it's not ideal. They become malnourished, and they get health problems, and it stunts their development and their growth and stuff. And so you can clearly see that we're meant to be eating meat, and in particular, ruminant meat. Why ruminant meat instead of like pork and chicken and stuff? I mean, those are good too, I guess, if you can get clean sources today. But I just think there's something about the nutrient content of these large ruminant animals, like buffalo, cows, or the predecessor to cows, the wild predecessor, bison, those kind of animals, goats even maybe. They just have something in their meat and their organ meat and stuff that you can't get from chicken, you can't get from fish, and fish was another thing. But yeah, so that's what we're designed to eat. So instead of eating these things, we're eating like wheat that's like genetically modified even. But even if it was not genetically, we're eating like grass, and we're like processing it and like breaking it down. I'd like to know where did that start? Making bread, because it's mentioned in the Bible. People have been making bread for thousands of years. Of course, the bread thousands of years ago is very different from the bread today. Like, when did that start? But that's not something our pre-human ancestors were eating. Our pre-human ancestors, before language, I would assume we were eating meat and probably cooking with fire before we even had language. I would like to know more about that. But I do think that's what separates us from, like, gorillas and bonobos and stuff. I think I'd like to learn more about this, but I think like gorillas, they are vegetarians, and they're very stupid animals. So there's something to do with the brain development requiring meat. Like, you don't see the kind of intelligence that predators are always smarter than their prey typically. They have bigger brains and they're able to plan and stuff. So it takes more intelligence to be a hunter than it does to be a prey animal. Fascinating stuff. I'd like to learn more about this. I find it really interesting. But yeah, if you just eat the wrong food, then this is what happens to your body. You become inflamed, obese, get all these health problems. I just saw on Instagram or YouTube somewhere, TikTok maybe, I saw there's like an 80-year-old woman who is like a power lifter, and she's been eating nothing but meat her entire life. And she doesn't look 80 at all. I mean, she looks like 45, and she's strong. She's a power lifter. And I think she's like Amish or something. I don't know. I wish I could remember her name or how to look her up. You can probably just look her up, but I think the title of the video is like 80-year-old woman eats carnivore or something. But I mean, she's strong. She has a strong, fit body, lean, no dementia. She's given interviews, and apparently she's 80 years old. And I had a double take, and did I read that right? Because there's no way this woman's 80 years old. And and that's just how our ancestors lived. And you can see more evidence of this. The Inuit, they live on like seals, and they drink the seal blood. They hunt, or they did, before the modern world encroached on them. The Inuit were like probably the last true like zero carb carnivores. There's no plants that grow up in the Arctic where they thrive, or they're just living on fish and seal meat and stuff. So we can eat. We're meant to eat meat. Is the point I'm making? And there's ideal sources of meat that are better for us than other meat. Like you can probably just live on chicken if you eat healthy chicken. You probably could, but I don't think that's ideal. I think there's nutrients in beef and other mammal meat that is more essential, more biocompatible with our biology because we're made out of what we eat. And if we eat food that's similar to us biochemically, it's probably better for us, I would imagine. And we know that birds are not the same as us. Fish are not the same as us. But I would imagine there's probably people that just live on fish, historically, like in places where there weren't large animals to hunt and kill. But I think where civilization thrived, it's where, they had access to, cattle. So that's the preferred food source, I think. And because you want to build a strong workforce and a strong civilization, you can't be the greatest minds and stuff. They weren't eating, cornflakes, or bread. I mean, they were eating bread, but they were eating meat. So, and yeah, I wish I could. There's lots of books on this. I'd like to do more research when I have time, learn more about this. But I am just completely convinced that a meat-free life, you can't be healthy that way. That's why vegans have to take, I think it's B12 shots. They have to take some sort of supplement because there's just no way to get that amount of food, the right certain nutrients when you're not eating meat. And then, so yeah, and then a lot of the meat, when you think of meat today, you think of like, processed meat. It's all carcinogenic. It's very bad. Processed meat's very bad for us. When you just get to like, the way our ancestors did, before the industrial food system, and ideally before agriculture is probably more ideal. Because I think historically the poor people were fed the bread and the rice. In Asia, it was rice instead of bread. I think the poor, and they to keep them from starving, they were fed the rice and bread. But the wealthier you were, the more you would just eat meat, and that would make you stronger and smarter, because it's fuel for your building blocks and fuel for your brain and your muscles. Whereas like bread is just to keep from starving, really. It's just to fill your stomach. That's really what all it was. Is to turn off the starvation sensation, so you could focus on, getting back to, fixing the roads or whatever, or building or whatever, But that's my thinking on the natural human diet. And yeah, it sucks. I haven't been allowed to do this for 10 years. It sucks that I can't do that. I haven't been allowed to. I'm in this situation where I depend on others to allow me to control my food. But I've just been poor. I've just been really fucking broke my whole damn life, and disabled and dependent on my family, and surviving in homeless and poverty for 10 years now, ever since I lost I've been dependent on my family my whole life, off and on, to varying degrees. There were times in my early 20s where I wasn't dependent on my family in the slightest. I just kept them nearby in case of an emergency, which they never seemed to be there. I remember specifically one time when I was having a financial catastrophe, and my mother, I must have been like 22, 21, and my mother told me, because I was paying rent and living outside the house for no reason. I could have easily been living at home, but they just chose to make that difficult for me. And I called her and I told her, I can't make my credit card bill. And I think she told me to go to one of those check cashing places and try to get a payday loan or something, which is common in the ghetto. You see these places, they charge like crazy interest rates and stuff. And I remember thinking, that's not a financial advice that I would give my son. And either she's really stupid with her financial understanding of finances, or she has malicious intent towards me. But she can't be malicious, so she just must be very foolish. I think I wanted her to like help me get a balance transfer credit card or something, because I was struggling with credit card debt, because the credit cards were there when my paycheck didn't cover my an emergency or something with the car, or with just, trying to. My girlfriend and I, we were just struggling on minimum wage in like rural Arizona. Just in poverty, driving a $500 used car that we shared, or she didn't even drive, and it was just extreme poverty, and one little mistake and one little $100 emergency or something, and you can't solve that without using a credit card, and then the interest starts kicking in, and you start racking up a balance. Just so I basically lived in poverty my whole damn life, and then surrounded. It's like torture. I'm just surrounded by all this abundance and wealth, and we go on social media, we see how the rich live, and it's just like, growing up, I would see how my friends live, and I'd compare it to how I live, and it's just like two different worlds, and it's just like, why it doesn't have to be that way. So I studied personal finance. I got into personal finance extensively, and I learned everything there is to know about basic personal finance. I didn't really go into investing that much. There's still a lot I need to learn about stocks and the stock market and how to stock trading, and I know I need to read The Intelligent Investor, and I have a whole reading list on that I'll get to at some point in my life, hopefully. But as far as like banking and money and saving and interest, like loans, borrowing money, and finances, and that kind of thing, and like I have a pretty good understand. I have a above average understanding of that kind of stuff. And then I want to mention, this is getting long. If you're still listening, you must love me. Dave Ramsey ruined my life. So I think my father, I think my parents just didn't understand how to manage money. I think they never had their own separate finances handled, and they both had financial problems, and they got married, and the finances they never figured it out. And apparently, if you look at the data, it's really common. Like, I think I read somewhere that like the average American has like couldn't handle a $500 emergency or something, or $1,000 problem or something. It's just like, so like people just don't understand. There's these personal finance shows are really popular. There's this kind of fat young guy with glasses on YouTube. I forget his name. He has like a personality, a really abrasive personality. He's like a personal finance guru. I can't think of his name, but and then we have Dave Ramsey, of course. But Dave Ramsey, some of these guys' advice, it's targeted to the lowest common denominator. It's not targeted to people that are doing spreadsheets and calculating interest rates and mathematical and precise. It's targeted to like, they're just like the mainstream general average French fry eating, general lowest common denominator out there. So like someone like me who's a little bit more sophisticated and elaborate with his, finances and stuff, I don't need like Dave Ramsey advice. I just need to look. I just need to look at the numbers and the data, and like and it's just very simplistic. Dave Ramsey, his advice, it's like simplistic. I think he has a program. It's called like Baby Steps or something. So it's like trying to like talk to a child, like really basic stuff. So a really good one of Dave Ramsey's pieces of advice is like, if you can't afford something, just don't buy it, or don't finance things. I mean, maybe that's good advice for like a child or something. But I mean, we live in the real world. You have to finance a home. You have to finance an education. Like, even if you get scholarships, you still have to pay for some of it. And if you don't have the money, you should finance it. Like, if you're telling me if you get into Harvard on a scholarship for computer science, oh, I think Harvard's known for something else, but if you get into Stanford on a scholarship for computer science, you're telling me, and you need to take out like 20,000 in student loans. You're telling me we should just say fuck it. I'm not going to Stanford. You should borrow the fucking money. That's a great deal. If you're certain you can actually, perform academically, which how would you get accepted on a scholarship if you can't? So that would be shitty advice to follow Dave Ramsey advice and not finance, a university education. I'm just asking my family to let me finance going back on a truck and doing it properly because I've done trucking before, and I've never done it properly. I've always done it half-ass, disabled by poverty and not having the right equipment, not having the right tools, not having the right medical care. Your body is your biggest asset in trucking next to your truck. The truck has to be mechanically sound and everything has to check out, no mechanical problems. Your body has to operate that truck. And if the body has problems, then it can't operate the truck for the duration. And then it's just very bad. So I need dental care. I need equipment, supplies, medicine. It all costs money. So we've got the socialism, this philosophy. So basically, I'm a victim of Dave Ramsey philosophy. Don't borrow money unless you for anything ever. So I guess by Dave Ramsey's thinking, if I needed to get a liver transplant or I was going to die, and I didn't have the cash in the bank to pay for it, I would just die, and that would be the right thing to do. So, I've ruined my finances. I can't access credit markets on my own. I checked with my family first before I ruined my finances because I wanted to make sure they would be there for me if I ruined them, because it would seem really foolish to me to do that. I was on track to have a perfect credit score maybe a few years ago, and but I got really sick from the gadolinium, and I started not being able to make the credit card payments. And if I had been healthy, I would have paid my credit cards off, and I would have had a perfect credit score. And but yeah, it's sad. You should never have to rely on credit. You should. When you're young, you should build your credits. You want to always have good credits. So the way the rich and intelligent people use credit, they use it as a tool to make money, not the way the poor use credit that the Dave Ramsey's talking to. Dave Ramsey's talking to poor people. He's not giving advice to rich people, which is funny because why do poor people get different advice than rich people? That doesn't make any sense. Dave Ramsey's advice, it sounds good, it makes you feel good, and it might work for short-term problems, like if you're trying to be poor. But like people like me who want to be successful in life and stuff, and who are intelligent and understand basic mathematics and personal finance concepts, if if I go back in time, not be sick, and paid off all my credit cards, when it comes time to buy a car or when it comes to finance a home, even if you can pay cash for a piece of real estate, no one does that. You don't pay cash for real estate or a car. You finance these things, and then you take the money you would have paid cash for the asset, and you invest it. So your money grows, and you finance these things at lower than the price of inflation on interest. So it's free money. It's just a little more sophisticated and a little more difficult to put that into a soundbite, what I just said there. So let me say that again. This is the correct way to use credit. Use the bank's money to make yourself rich. Instead of paying cash for a car, you finance the car because you're going to have full coverage insurance, comprehensive insurance anyway, right? It's an asset. You want to protect it. You're going to you finance the luxury vehicle, and some vehicles, we can even talk about tax write-offs. That's why people buy these big SUVs. Larger vehicles get special tax exemptions and stuff. But you finance the assets at an ultra low interest rate, and the asset is collateral against the loan, and then you take the cash in the bank that you would have paid cash for that car, and you put that into like the S&P 500 or something like a safe investment, whatever you think is safe. I would put it into Bitcoin personally, but I think that's the safest investment long term. And then so then your assets, so then you're not paying. I think there's some tax advantages to doing it that way, but then you still have the money, and the money's growing because you invested it. So you don't lose the money; it's still in your control, and then you also have the thing you were going to finance, the car, and that's an asset as well. And then you're paying that down. You're making the payments on that car payment, and the interest rate you're getting is lower than the inflation rate, the real inflation rate at least. So you're actually getting a cheaper. It's like you're getting a discount. It's like you're paying a discounted price. So you're financing the car at I don't know what the interest rates are. Let's say you pay. I have no clue. Let's say the interest rate is 5%. That might be high. I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. I've never financed a car that way. I've wanted to, but I've never had the ability. You finance the car at 5% interest rate, but the inflation rate is 6%. That means you're making 1%, right? That because the value of the money is going down. The value of, do you understand the math there? Like that makes this. I don't have the vocabulary to explain this correctly, but you're actually making money just by financing. But if you're a fool and you spend that money that you would have spent on the assets instead of investing it, and you're just spending that money on like designer clothes or something unnecessary, then that's stupid. So Dave Ramsey's talking to the stupid idiots out there that live paycheck to paycheck and can't invest their money because their lives are just out of control, and they don't know how to be sophisticated and control their expenses. So people like me who are like, my personality type is INTJ, which is like the architect. That's the strategist, the war strategist, the architect. That's it's very rare apparently. So he's not talking to people like me. He's talking to people, Joe Schmo, gas station attendant, or Nancy the single mom waiting tables at the diner. That's who he's talking to. So I'm not saying his advice isn't good for certain types of people. Joe the police officer or Bob the firefighter, just average, typical, everyday postal workers, everyday folk. But people like me who are like ultra sophisticated, like computer technology literate, finance literate, I should have been a math literate, but I had to drop out of 7th grade, so I never got to calculus or anything. But people like me who are ultra sophisticated and technical, he's not talking to the people like me, okay? He's not talking to autistic computer nerds. He's talking to average, common, everyday folk. And so he might be doing a public service to some people, but I'm a victim of him indirectly because my father refuses to allow me access to the financing that he could have access to through his financial situation to equip me to do anything. So that's why I'm trying to survive on $200 a week here, which is impossible. And that's why I don't have internet. It's amazing I can still upload these videos, but I can't even get my CDL back. I said in the other video I have my CDL. I don't have my CDL. I have my medical card. I still have to submit that to the state. I have to make phone calls. I have to use the web. I can't do that with the way my laptop's not working. The Wi-Fi's not working, and then I can't use the computer this way. It's too painful. So I'm hoping to convince my father that I'm a little more sophisticated than the commoners out there, the hoi polloi. That's not me. I'm me, and if only I had a fair shot, a fair starting point. If only I had come from an upper middle class or just a middle class family. By the time you graduate high school, you're worth $40,000, or $100,000. Like my kids, if I'm ever in a position to have my own kids, they would be worth at least $100,000 by the time they're finished with high school, just from allowance and me teaching them how to invest, and the free car I'm going to give them, and the assets they have in their bedrooms. Uh, Maybe 100,000, and also the investments I'm going to give them. For college and stuff. That I'm going to give them college money and stuff. So yeah, so if I'm able to, that's just what I consider normal. It's about what you consider normal. In your community. So the community my family came from, I guess it was normal to be kicked out of your home at 18 with nothing, but the clothes on your back, and don't told to never come home again with after you dropped out of high school and couldn't make friends with anybody who could help you. So I guess that was considered normal. So that, to me, that sounds savage and brutal and inhumane and a crime against humanity. But who am I? But I'm not trying to say I'm better than anybody. I'm just different. So, but there are lots of people out there who think like me and agree with me everything I just said there about everything in this video. And those are my people, and there's more of them out there than you realize. But there's different worlds you can live in on this planet, and I belong in a world like that where people take care of their families and people care about their, not being a burden on people and that kind of thing, raising kids properly and providing for their men providing for their families and stuff. So yeah, I know if I just been supported through high school and through college by my family, I definitely would have been working in tech for the last 20 years. And who knows where I'd be now. I know I'd probably be done with, my career in corporate America, and I'd be, doing philanthropy or investing or something. Probably there's a lot of ideas for companies and things I want to do in the world. And you only have to get rich once. And then it's really easy to. It's a lot easier to stay rich than it is to get rich. But more people became rich in my generation and than at any time in human history. I'm pretty sure if you look up the stats on that, I think there's more people like me who became rich, like Mark Zuckerberg, these kind of people. Imagine if Mark Zuckerberg, who I don't like, by the way, but let's imagine he had to drop out of 7th grade and then go work in retail instead of going to Harvard. He went to Harvard, right? Did Mark go to Harvard or Stanford? That, we wouldn't have Facebook, and we would still have Facebook. Someone else would have done it. But, I've studied business extensively, and there's lots of stuff I want to do in the world. I'd really like to be an entrepreneur at some point, but I didn't have that opportunity yet. So I do see how I could use trucking to at least get to the middle class, because you got to be middle class first before you can do anything more. If you can't meet your needs, you're not going to be creative. You're not going to be able to. I hate to say it, I really think people who aren't middle class, people who are lower than upper middle class and below that, they're not really like fully developed people, because they're like in a state of survival. So they're not really their best selves, and they're not fully developed. So they're kind of like, I don't like the word subhuman. It sounds mean, but like they're a different type of people. That's why rich people don't like to be surrounded by. That's why rich people like to live in their own, gated communities and, away from the commoners, because it's difficult to relate to them, and it's like, it's like, they like to stay in their ivory towers, and you can't blame them, So, so I'm hoping my father will change his Dave Ramsey programming. It's probably, he's just looking for justifications to be cruel. But yeah, my father could help me get the financing to go back trucking, and say he's playing this game. They're trying to force me into a survival scenario, destitute in a truck, at the whim of a 22-year-old dispatcher deciding my fate, and that's just not going to work. Um, I've got to take my trucking career. Uh, I've got to approach it from a position of strength. They've always tried to set me up to approach my jobs in my life from a position of weakness instead of a position of strength, and that's how you always end up in the losing scenario. So really, it's an abuse tactic. So Dave Ramsey is giving my father ammunition to use as a weapon. I got punched in the face by my father yesterday. I got hit in the face. He sucker punched me right in the face while he's driving. I almost lost control of the vehicle the same way my brother did. So I've been assaulted. I've been punched in the face or slapped by all three immediate members of my family while they were driving. All three of them love to force me to rely on them for transportation, and then while they have me in the car, use me as a punching bag. And I've never laid a finger on any of these people. But they can't stand hearing the truth when I speak. They can't stand hearing intelligence. They can't stand being surrounded by intelligent people. That's why they live by themselves in Oklahoma. They can't stand being surrounded by intelligent, educated people who have a mind of their own. They want to be surrounded by yes men or nobody. And it's a threat to their mental illness, to their fictional delusion they live in. When they hear the truth, it feels to them, these narcissists, it feels like a personal insult, a personal attack on their being. So when they sucker punch me, it's like they actually think my words are physically harming their body. That's what they think. They perceive it as a physical threat. My words coming out of my mouth. That's why I have the false restraining order. That's why it's because they're literally mentally ill. They think words, and I think it's getting bad. My father's British, so he doesn't understand the concept of free speech. He doesn't understand one of the foundational principles of the United States is the idea that you can say whatever you want, and it's not like England where people get arrested for sharing their thoughts on Facebook. Or Canada, I don't think Canada has free speech either, which is foundational for a free society. You can't have a proper society without freedom of speech. So I will exercise my rights on here, and I will not be silenced, even though they've cut off my internet and they're not letting me have phone service, which is crazy. So I hope my father will change his tune with me, and I've got to get control of my diets. I got to start cooking healthy food, carnivore diet, ketogenic diet in the hotel room here with the equipment, all the equipment for that from Amazon. And once I get my diet right, once I get my sleep right, and I get the medical care I need and the dental care I need, then I can get my CDL back and get the equipment I need to live in a truck, to camp in a truck. Once I get all that equipment, then I'll go back on a truck, and I'll hopefully never talk to these savages ever again. And they just heard that word savage, and they took that as a physical insult to their body. But that's just my opinion. I can say my opinion on people. I have the right to my opinion.